Hi guys, well today I'm going to be making this starry nightlight with LEDs. I'm Linn and this is the Darbin Orvar channel. I started with setting up the blade on the table saw to the right angle, and I'm using this angle gauge to measure it correctly. Now a circle has 360 degrees and I'm using 6 pieces, so divided by 6 we have 60. But to find the one side of the 60-degree angle we divide in 2 and it comes to 30. So here I am cutting this thin piece of ipe I had left over from a different project, and I'm giving it a 30-degree angle on both sides. Then I cut it in 6 pieces on the miter saw. So I got it in the shop and figured I should test it out. So using some masking tape here, and that worked perfectly. Next I'm marking each side with some chalk. And then I also marked out how far in the top and the bottom will sit. Then I started marking out a pattern. So I wanted a starry design, nothing that felt too uniform, so I just kind of played around with the basic clusters here of stars. Then I just took off the tape and improved the design wherever it needed it. It's all very scientific, you see. Now off to the drill press. So I simply used a variety of bits and basically followed the design more or less. I started with the larger bit and then gradually moved down smaller. So this took a little while to accomplish, because the smaller the holes became, the more holes I drilled to fill in all that space. But overall it was quite fun to create this design. Now for the top and the bottom, I had some thicker 3/4 inch pieces of ipe that I'm just gluing together. And then while that dried, I sanded each of the sides down. On one of the sides, I need material removed to fit a small switch. So just marking it out, sawing down the side, and using a chisel to remove the wood. Next, I'm marking out where the holes need to go, and just drilling some small holes. I also drilled a hole in the side for the power plug. Now, time to connect these together again with some tape. And that's because I need to mark out the inside for the top and the bottom. Once I had that marked out, I took the piece out to the bandsaw and cut it to size. I also drilled some holes in the top piece to match the design, and then I began gluing everything up. In here I just made sure I had the order right of the sides, which I had marked out earlier to preserve the pattern. Then clamping it, and I'm just gluing the top piece on. However, I did slide in the bottom piece with some wax paper covering it for some additional support while the piece is glued up. So I have a square piece of wood which I'll put light strips on, and then this block will fit into the bottom. Then the star shade will slip on top of that. So I need to carve out a section in the middle of the bottom so that the block can sit inset. And I started with drilling out a hole on the drill press, and then I did some chisel work to remove the corners. And it fits in pretty good. Next to the carved out area, I'm drilling a hole where the wires can go through. And on the underside, I'm drilling out a couple of shallow holes to make room for the electronics. Now I have the block of wood and I'm using common 12-volt LED strips. Basically, I'm gluing a few strips down one side and then overlaying a few more down the other side. And there's my new LED strip bulb. To solder the lights together, I'm soldering all the positives on one side and all the negatives on the other. And that's just because it was neater that way. So here you can see how this basically works. Block of wood, light strips, positives connected on one side, negatives on the other. That sits in the base, and I have switched and a power plug. The power connects to the positive side and the switch connects to the negative side. And that's it. Here I connected slightly thinner wires to a power plug and putting on some heat shrink. And you can see the underside here where I'm securing the wires to the power and the switch with some hot glue. So the wires to the lights go through the wood. I can place the block in the bottom and then flick the switch. Okay, and then the shade goes on top of that. Then I'm securing the switch in place with some tiny screws, and I also have another screw on the side connecting the shade to the bottom. Now for a finish, I'm starting out with some shellac, and I'm simply putting it on with a cloth. And I really like this because it's a natural finish and it dries really quickly, so I can sand it lightly and then put on a second coat. Now to make the shade super smooth, I'm applying some of my raw linseed oil beeswax polish with some steel wool. And then buffing it to dry a few minutes later. To finish the bottom, I cut up some black fabric to size, and then I hot glued it down. So in total, this setup uses about 6 watts of power. I'm often asked if these lights produce a lot of heat, and after an hour of being used, the LED bulb I created can safely be handled. LEDs are very low power type of lights, and as long as they have a lot of airflow, I have never had any problem using them. So this was a really fun project, and I think one of the reasons for that is that I didn't have much of a plan when I started out. I just had this idea that I wanted kind of a light that kind of looked like starry sky and with a reflection around it that looked kind of cool. So I just grabbed a piece of scrap wood and started drawing, and sometimes those projects are the most fun because they're not as restricted, you know? So anyway, I'm really happy about the way it came out, and I think Ipe worked out really well. Or, you know, any dark wood would have been good, but it just provides a nice amount of contrast. I think this would actually look really cool in the middle of a table or around, you know, something where you can see all sides. Or you can use it as an accent light, or, you know, as a night lamp in the bedroom. And I put a lot of lights in here, and if you had it in, you know, at night, you wouldn't need quite as many lights. You could go a little bit less than I did. Now, if you are one of my patrons, this probably looks familiar to you because I did talk about this and showed it a little bit in my latest weekly Patreon vlog. And yeah, if you'd like to support what I do and help me grow this channel to reach more people, then you can check out the link below. I'll put a link to my Patreon page. And yeah, I really appreciate it. I have a lot of fun doing my vlogs each week. Yeah, I'll also put links in the description to the products that I used if you're interested in that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time here so you don't miss any of my upcoming projects. See you guys soon. This whole shop feels a bit like a spaceship right now. All of the lights moving.